How should we start? Is the first satsang other attended didn't ask a question? Yeah. Good.
I've been coming physically less to the satsang, but I've been very regular in hearing the recordings every day, probably. I'm still finding difficulty to meet the concept, witnessing it. I'd heard you say in one of the recordings, which I heard, that when you get up in the morning, right from bed, and without having any perception or concept at that time, when you're half awake and half asleep, you feel the presence, and probably that's one pointer towards the God's presence, where physically you're not perceiving anything, neither thinking about it, but you feel that you are there. So that was a good pointer towards that. Are there any more pointers towards, because I find it very difficult to meet the God's presence? That is one question. And second question was,
so shall we go one by one?
Yeah.
So I'll forget the first one. Thank you for sharing that. You don't find it easy to meet God's presence. It's very important to admit that also. It's very important to admit that, because especially if you're here in the room, that's what I was saying the other day, that if I say, have you met God's light, are you living in God's presence, then when people nod or your hands go up, then it seems natural that we must also, like in the herd mentality, follow. So it's good that you admit that and you say that I find it difficult. So right now, besides the realm of perceptions which are being perceived, how do you know that you are awake? Are you awake only because you are seeing things and hearing things?
perhaps it's adding on to the breathing,
Breathing.
Probably.
So if it all stopped, or the perception of them stopped, at which point would you say that, okay, I was asleep? Then sight goes away, hearing goes away, smell goes away, touch, taste, breathing, all thoughts. What makes you say that you're awake and not asleep? This is similar to what the pointer that you were talking about, saying what changed in that moment in the morning, where we realize that we are awake, independent of the perception of the world. Now, many who are new will say, no, but just there was no world and suddenly there is a world. That is the only difference. But you can actually notice, if you're paying attention, that prior to or independent of the world being perceived, there's a sense of aliveness, a sense of wakefulness that is here. You have a sense of that, which is then pointing to the same question as, can you stop being? Can you not be right now? Just try to not exist. Can you try it? Sometimes even trying seems difficult because we're trying to resolve it as an understanding. So I wanted to be moved away from an attempt to intellectually understand, to really, like, with the innocence of a child, we have to do it. Now, if you tell a child, just stop playing with that rattle, they may not listen, but they understand the instruction. You see? Here, when I say try to stop being, you really have to just try to not be. Don't exist. Or a simpler way to look at that is, just in this instant, fall asleep. Don't be awake. Are you still awake? What is that wakefulness, aliveness? where are we? Is it like kuch to hai par?
Yeah.
Is it like that? That it's something, but I can't really place a finger on it. Is it like that, or is it just words?
Just that.
So try to, as ineloquently as you like, tell me a little more about that. What do you mean by that?
Difficult to describe it, but there's some awakening feeling, probably, I guess.
Like a wakefulness.
Wakefulness feeling.
Yes. It's like, it feels like a feeling, but it's not like the other feelings of anger, joy, peace. It's not like that. It's not really a feeling, and neither is it energy. That's why I keep calling it a living being, so that we don't take it to be like a feeling, a force of nature, like energetic. Dive into that, remain with that. Because in Maya, that is the only real doorway to God. Everything else takes you outwardly. But to meet that which is, why is it ungraspable? Why can't you really put a finger on it? Because it is not fully objective. It's not fully like an object, and neither is it completely non-phenomenal. You realize what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if it was completely non-phenomenal, as the highest, as the absolute is, as awareness is, then for most it just sounds like a word. The meeting of the absolute seems too far-fetched for most. If it is completely phenomenal, then we would have just idolized it or made an object out of it or a thing out of it, and said, here it is, close to my heart, there's a tiny object which is the being. And then it would just be another object which is perceived and then will be unperceived. But because this is neither phenomenal nor non-phenomenal, or both phenomenal and non-phenomenal, it is a doorway into that which is beyond the realm of perception, beyond the realm of Maya. That is why to come to this is very important. So at least we are at a point where you can say that there is something. I don't really know whether it is the same that he's talking about. Is it just my imagination? The mind may be doubting all of these things, and that's fine. Use that to dive in deeper. Because to come to this Atma Darshan, to come to this Atma Gyan is very important. It is the most important project. If you lived a life and never came to your Atma, then in my eyes you haven't lived at all. So it doesn't always seem easy because forever we've only taken Maya to be real. We've only taken the world of perceptions to be real. So the switch over of the instrument from the perceptions and mind intellect to your intuition where this is palpable seems a bit strange. So where do we recognize this presence? Or with what instrument do we recognize this presence? Is it like other sensory objects? Okay, so is Atma like this? This also looks very holy, white. All the ideas we may have about it may be here. You see? But is it like this? Like something like this is inside you. No? Then what is it? Then what is it? Huh? What is it?
Sometimes it's so hard to distinguish because the perfume is connected with it, but even when the perfume's not there, it's there.
Yes.
So it's easy to.
Yes. It's easy to get mistaken by the perfume. But what is the source of the love? What is the source of the peace? Where does it come from? And how is it known?
Father, just tying it back to what you were saying when you wake up in the morning, and what is the difference between being asleep and awake? I think the single biggest difference is just thought. As soon as a thought arrives, and to answer your last question, at least personally, you feel that when there is absence of thought, but you still feel a presence in the absence of thought, and that's the
Exactly.
closest thing to
Yes.
knowing there is something else. And yeah, there is no
So
other.
let's go slowly with your answer. So when we wake up, instantly you feel like there is thought?
Depends on the day. Some days you wake up and it's a tirade.
It's boom, boom,
It's
boom. Yes,
just
can be.
arrives.
And on other days?
It takes a while. I mean, you're just feeling.
So what changed between you being asleep and the first thought coming? When we say it takes a while,
Where the mind becomes more involved in producing a thought.
yes. But I'm saying that in that interval between you being asleep and then we wake up, and then we say on some days it takes a while before the thoughts start coming. So in that interim, in that while, what is there that shows you that you are awake and not asleep?
I would say awareness.
Yes, awareness. Awareness. But now, suppose that you're perceiving this hand. Now this hand goes away. You're perceiving that. Now, suppose sleep is the state where the hand goes away, and waking is the state where the hand is there. If the witness was not there to see that the hand goes away, then could we ever say that there is a sleep state? We couldn't, because even the absence of being, the absence of everything has to be witnessed. Otherwise, we could not say that it goes away and then it comes. I went to sleep and I woke up. You see, even the awareness is aware even of that. So awareness has to be the constant, independent of the four states of existence. So awareness is going to be constant whether you fall asleep right now or you're fully awake. Awareness does not change. So then what arrives when you say that I woke up? What is that? Presence, being, you see, and whose presence is that? Who wakes up? Whose being is palpable? Because this is prior to identity, isn't it? Prior to us making I am somebody, I am Ananta out of it. It is just I am. Has it become theoretical now? Or?
No, I think you're saying it's the presence within the awareness.
Yes, exactly. So there is the presence of a living being within ourselves, which is awareness. And that presence is the most important, because it is Atma, it is the Sadguru presence, it is the Holy Spirit. It is only on top of this that we build even our identity. So we would not be able to say, I am Bala, I am Achal, without the sense I am first. To which being are we giving this identity? To which presence? So, to come to God's presence, the only requirement which we can fulfill is to be empty of ourselves. The rest is His grace. To leave the me, मैं को छोड़ना, is important for us. I love this saying, Anandmayi Ma said, Maya means मैं आया. The मैं comes. When मैं comes, it is Maya. When me comes, then what happens to God? Forgotten. Seems unreal, theoretical, conceptual. What happens to God? When me goes, and if it is His grace, if it is His will, then God is an alive presence, palpable, tangible, the substratum of all of this experiencing. So when Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi asked the question, in whose light do we even experience the light of the sun? That's another pointer to your being, to your presence. What is making all this experiencing happening? What is making all this experiencing happen for you right now? Who is hearing this voice? Who is perceiving this room? Is that inert or is it a alive presence? I love also what Dr. Jyoti told me. She said, in Vedanta, it is said Maya has two jobs. First is to obscure the truth, and then to give you a replacement version of it. So this Maya, which is the taking me to be a reality, me to be what I am, a limited body-mind, to be what I am, when that is taken to be reality, then the presence of God seems just like a nice idea, hopefully nice.
Father, just a related question. Why does, and I know this is a question from the mind, but why does Maya even exist?
Why?
Because there is awareness, there is presence, we all should just be there, be happy. Why are we fighting this?
Okay. I'll answer the question if you can tell me why anything. Why is there presence within awareness? And the classic philosophical question, Why is there something instead of nothing? Why do we exist? Why is there existence? Why is there waking state? You see? So the sages in the past realized that why questions can't really be applied to God's will. So, but still they realize that, okay, we will not accept that. So we need more palatable answers. So one of the popular ones is that this is all Chidvilasa, which means the play of consciousness. Consciousness apparently was bored, or God apparently was bored. So, to play with himself, in himself, he created this manifest world. So, that is one. If that appeals to you, you can take that. The other one is to God wanted to experience himself in a manifest form. That which is purely nominal wanted to experience itself in phenomenality. You see, a taste of himself, so to speak. So that is why this manifest world is created. Then, so that there are more sweet sounding answers, which are because only once there is a sense of separation can we enjoy the true taste of love. So that is the third option. The fourth option is that it's actually an evolutionary process of consciousness itself. Consciousness itself is learning and growing in this entire process. This is fourth. We can keep making these whatever appeals to us. But the fact is that our intellect is too small to grasp the mind of God. Why did he make this? We can call this in the modern world, instead of saying Maya, Leela, we can say, okay, it's like a computer game. Simulation theory, all of that. So, but the fact is that the why of it can never be truly resolved. It can only be known in the heart, but the heart answers. Like 99% of what you know in the heart, there are no words to explain, isn't it? So intuitively everything is known, but not everything comes to the surface of expression, doesn't come to becoming explanations. So it's usually best in satsang to leave the why and focus on the who. You focus on the who, but the mind doesn't like the who, it prefers the why. It's just we talked about this one letter difference. WHO versus WHY. And most of the intellect, the design of the intellect prefers why instead of who. We can't actually even answer whether any of this has happened. And what does to happen actually mean?
Further to Bala's question, I just wanted to add, because when I read "Who am I," the one thing I don't I've never really I've just accepted it completely at face value is a part where Bhagwan talks about karma, and he does talk about, he says nothing that happens in the presence of God affects God, like when the sun rises, life starts, flowers bloom, and creation takes shape but doesn't affect the sun. So, but he says the souls all play out in Maya by the law of karma, and then he talks about, some divine principles. I never really, but I just thought in the context of why, is there something like some other, what are your views on karma, and is there some kind of, divine logic which is related to, good and bad, judgment, redemption, so something like that?
So karma as a notion is, and for me, it appears as if it is an attempt to make an understanding of that which is ununderstandable. And then if you really investigate the attempt, if you really look into karma, and of course, Bhagwan is absolutely right, but right in the sense of we need an answer sometimes to just take the question away so that we can just be in the present, because the intellect's pestering with the questions which are unanswered then can keep us stuck over there. This is all. So I feel like Bhagwan's attempt to call it karma could be that way. Because if you really investigate karma, then God himself must have given the initial momentum, no? If what you sow is what you reap, how does that whole cycle start? So something has to do that, you see, starting, you see. So this is happening because you did something yesterday, or what you did yesterday is what you did because of something you did day before, and so on and so on and so on. But where would it start? You see? So the initial karmic momentum or the flick of the dominoes must have happened by the causeless cause, or there must be a causeless cause to even put that principle into play, and our interest must be in that. See? Our interest must be what is that source that makes all of this seeming cause and effect causation even happen. What has designed all of this? What is that first cause, or that which is prior to all causes? That is the first thing. The second thing is that consciousness being fully alive, intelligent and present and all powerful and all pervasive, sometimes in our attempt to understand like predetermination or karma theory and all of that, it sort of makes even consciousness seem like a bit inert, you know, like the author has written the piece and now the author can't do anything about it. So if you just like, in a way it's reassurance, okay, when I'm suffering we say to ourselves it's my karma, so that helps, because we say that rather than blaming the world, I just take responsibility and say I must have done something, it's my own karma that I'm facing. But also that then that puts God in a very limited box. And as often I have said that God is fully alive, present and all powerful, which means that past can be changed, present can be changed, future can be changed by his will. So for my taste, at least the karma theory seems too limiting as far as the all-powerful one is concerned. That's why I hardly ever refer to that. Sometimes we use terms, we use answers just so that the more important points can be made. So often I will say, all this is a Leela, all this is Maya. But if you were to really question me and say, do you really say this is a Leela? I say, no. Is this Maya? No. You see, it is something which is unfathomable. But for the sake of communication and getting the main point across, we paint some constructs in which we try to express those points. Because if everything we just answer, no, it's unfathomable. It's unfathomable. then we may miss the way to point to that which is unfathomable but most critical to meet. So all the construction that happens in satsang in using of terms is only so that we can go beyond those terms and to that which is beyond understanding and perception.
Maya is Agyan, and Agyan does not exist. And then we are asking question, why is something which is existing, why it is existing, which is not existing.
Correct. So that's the Shankara's way, no? So Shankara said, Maya is both real and unreal. But what will you make out of that? Ah, okay. I shouldn't have provoked him.
Anantaji, in your journey, when did the presence become more apparent than the phenomenal world, mind, and things?
You may remember
Yeah,
I
you
shared this
shared two or three
a few times.
instances, like meeting Guruji or riding that rickshaw and realizing what is being. But I just wanted to ask that question again.
So it is that rickshaw story for the being, where you know the backstory also that I was reading I am that I was done with all the guru. This is before meeting Guruji. So because of some experiences, I was done with the guru stuff. I was like, no gurus for me. I'm just going to learn by myself. And I was reading I am that ferociously for years. I was just reading it, and it was like my book guru, that book. But it used to be very frustrating because to just be with the sense I am, just be with the being, to keep saying that. No, he said my master told me be with the sense of being, and I was just with the sense of being for 3 years, no, just 3 years, and I was free. He said, and that was very irritating because I couldn't find it for 3 seconds, 3 minutes. He's saying 3 years you have to be with the sense of presence. So I was having a mini tantrum with God when I got into the auto rickshaw, and it was very short ride. I was going from here, Casablanca, next door, to where my house was, to my office in Diamond District those days. So in that auto rickshaw ride, I was grasping, tantruming with God, saying, "What is this being? Why can't I find it? Where is this being?" Like that, and then it was apparent. I was like, but this was there here earlier also. It couldn't have just come. So it was just like, this is so simple. This is what I was struggling with. You see, so I realized the frustration also because I've been there. You see, I've been frustrated for a long period of time. And then I realized the apparency also because you see, it's like, oh, this is what I was searching for. It's so obvious. You see? So that was the experience in that way where it became palpable. But because of that, my false identity, my conditioning, all of that didn't really change too much as far as I remember. Only after I went to Guruji in Rohanamai and sat on the hot seat with him in that process of conversation, did that sense of fully dropping away happen, where that which is aware even of this presence became so simply obvious. So, so all credit has to go to my master for whatever's happened in this case. So it is.
Yeah, so that's why I asked this question because I knew you would say this, that inquiry in itself does not bring us to the presence. It is the grace that brings us to the presence.
So just because it played in one expression in this way, we must not make that a template and say this is what will happen for us also. Something like that needs to happen for us to move in that way. We must, all of you will come to it in different ways, and hopefully 10 years later when all of you ask this question, you will all have different answers to give, isn't it? So we must, in the meanwhile, not become too fixed in our head about how it is going to happen, how it is not going to happen. We must keep following, we must keep following. So in the process of reading I am that, there was a lot of inquiry, a lot of really as if I was in satsang with him. So that inquiry, that longing for God, all of that may have played a part. Who can say? So it is important to just keep following, even when it seems difficult or when it seems like there is no end to this. When will I ever really come to this? That's why I appreciate questions like he said. I don't really know whether this is God's presence. Am I really coming to it? It seems quite difficult. So I've been there, and if you want to use this life as a template, use it as an example of someone who was very bad at spirituality, very inconsistent, all over the place, spiritual shopping, all of that he has done, and yet by his grace, something he has made his presence apparent here. So use this one story as a story of reassurance more than anything else.
It also means if grace is not the only solution and you should put some effort towards it, I mean, is effort just being in contemplation, in meditation for more the number of hours put in? Because in my case, in morning, half an hour or 1 hour is the time when I think about this. But once you go to work from 10 hours, which a big part of the day is gone into not even having even one bit of a thinking towards it. So is it the more effort you put towards this, or more contemplation you do, or more inquiry you do, is that's the path towards it, or you leave it to grace to happen one day?
Yes. And this is again one of those confusing questions in spirituality. What will really make it happen? Is it effort or grace? Sometimes the Guru says, put all your effort will do it. Sometimes the Master says, no, why are you putting so much effort? It's all grace. You see? And that all depends on the situation of the disciple, the situation of the devotee. Sometimes the direction has to be go that way, sometimes it has to be go that way. But what is the real answer? Is it effort or grace? We can't really say. But the question really is that which part of it do we feel like we have something to do with? Like we can't produce grace for ourselves, but we can do effort, isn't it? Or seemingly at least. So let's as long as it feels like I have a choice to do work, I have a choice to do other things, we can also make every desperate effort, full-hearted attempt to meet God. So in terms of how to deal with the situation of work and things like that, if I say just remain open and empty no matter what comes, that may seem like a very useful instruction, but I've noticed over the years that most of you have trouble just following that. You can't just be open and empty, because, and many times the mind has convinced you that you're very open and empty, but it is just an idea that you have. So I would say we must find an anchor for ourselves when we start the day. So like I said, don't leave your bed firstly till you come to God, or till you've, in your case, if it seems very difficult to come to God's presence, then at least give it a full-hearted attempt, whichever way. You can do the Atma Darshan Samadhi, you can do the inquiry, you can do the invitation, or whatever has helped you. You can hear some devotional music, you can do whatever from your experience has brought you closest to being centered. You start your day like that, and don't start your day in a egotistical fashion, because it is not going to be fun for you, and it is not going to be fun for those around you. If you just wake up and you're like in the ego mission mode and things like that, then it's not, it's basically living a hellish life and introducing that hell to even those that we engage with moment to moment. So at least carry the intention. Now whether it happens or not, again, effort versus grace. So our job is to carry that intention and to make whatever effort. Now whether his blessing, his grace, his mercy makes his presence palpable or not, it's up to him, and he knows best. So start your day like that. Then if you, for example, use the Atma Darshan Samadhi, the prayer, then throughout the day you can keep chanting it, keep doing the prayer. But if your job is very involved, so you may find that I can't do the full prayer, but I can do the arrow prayer. For example, if your arrow prayer is Ram, 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 they could say Ram, 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 Ram. Now you may say that my job is even more involved that I can't be in this constant chanting. No? But so then every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, whenever you recall, whenever it comes to you, then remember God, bow down to Him in your heart. You see? So just whatever anchor, some of you may feel it easier to use the anchor of love. You see, so just use that moment, love God with all your might. So, but if you have this intention itself, it itself is good. Because I've never met anyone who has had the intention and then the way did not come to them. You see? The way will come to you. It is important to really say that my life is for this, or at least it is the most important thing for me in my life, then the ways will come. But like that, then what may happen is that you may find it easier and easier because you're listening to satsang so much to remain open and empty most of the time. But sometimes the mind is feeding you some very subtle messaging. You see? So then also it helps to just break that flow of the subtle messaging of the mind by saying the prayer or asking yourself the inquiry that the mind is saying, but I have to make sure this is done or something like that. Just catch it in that moment and say, who is this I? Who am I? So if your temperament is more that way that you want to inquire rather than pray, then use the inquiry and say, who am I? Whenever you recall. You see, there may be many days which you are just written off. Like 10 hours you didn't do anything. It's fine. But the next day you may have one moment of remembering. The next day you may have 2, 3. It all builds up. If you have the intention, then all of it will build up, it will happen. What happened in this case, and maybe because Azhar asked about some history, so what happened in this case was the reverse. So I used to go to work and I'm telling my employees, okay, leave that for later. How do you know that this is not a dream? You know? And because they were my team members, they couldn't even say shut up and go, let us do our work. You see? So rather than getting fully immersed in the work, I wanted to just ask everyone, so are you not contemplating? How do you know this is not a dream? And when the question was not interesting for them, I would, how is this not so important to ask? So it kind of takes a life of its own once you start inquiring into it.
Father, is this the difficult path? Because keeping awareness on self, and then again the thought will go, or there is a thoughtless existence or I feeling, and then is this the highest difficult path, or this particular looking inside or self observation or atmadarshan is the difficult
the difficult path when compared to what, like bhakti or yoga, or is that the comparison or
no comparison? The asking among the sadhanas or whatever techniques, or this is the difficult path, or because
I feel like this is the simplest. I feel this is the simplest. But it all depends on our temperament, what we resonate with. You see? But in God's grace today, everything is so freely available because of YouTube, internet, all of these things. So we must find something that really resonates with us, and we are able to follow and find ourselves coming to His light, His grace in some way. So whatever makes you less full of ego and more full of love for God, that is the good path.
I don't know exactly the question how it goes. I wanna see something and check something. I'll include a little bit example because it's easier, but it goes on a bigger picture. For example, this inner, it's like inner energy that guides. And for example, I feed dogs on the street now, or I did in big numbers, and I was quite dedicated to this. But that was just, it was like something inside that has to be done. And when I oppose to this, it's even worse. It's like I cannot oppose. It's like it has to be done. But I don't want to participate anymore. And then the second part is I could just simply go sit in ashram and just sit there and be with God. You understand? And I cannot oppose to also that. It's not like, it's just something that has to be done. And it's a struggle because like I don't want to participate anymore in anything. I'm getting really irritated because I see so much cruelty. And then I think to myself, okay, but if I sit and I'm just like that, isn't that more selfish? Isn't that worse than not to do anything? And I'm really going into this kind of dilemma of I'm battling myself inside because I can't find actually kind of I'm getting really, I think it's getting a bit worse because I'm getting more and more upset over humanity. I'm seeing too much of this and I want to withdraw completely, but I can't. So
What is your life for?
exactly, what is my life for? To
I'm asking.
serve.
To
To serve. Otherwise, it's just
serve God,
to serve in any way that can be good
Yes, and how will we know what is good?
because it's from God.
So is God not telling you, or what is happening, that if your life truly is to serve God, which means that to serve for the good, and all good is only that which comes from God, then what is the dilemma if God tells you? You see, and what you said for the first one, usually I found many times, mostly, it is the opposite. When we oppose God's will, initially it seems like we are rewarded in Maya. It can seem like, oh yeah, this is so much simpler. I don't have to sit and inquire all day or pray all day. Just do your work. You see, do the thing Krishna has said in the Gita. Apparently, that one passage is really made a misunderstanding out of the Gita. But just keep doing your work, everything will be fine. You see? So like that, and it seems to pay off initially. You see, it's just like, yeah, it's so simple. I'm just doing my stuff, and all this inquiring, praying, having faith in God, being humble, all of this stuff, just leave it. You see? It can seem to become much simpler, but that ease doesn't last. Because when we make me the center of the story, you see, then what happens, as you well know, it is suffering, it is uh, trouble, issues, relationships, so much duality in everything is bound to lead to suffering. So maybe all that you need to do is just be guided by Him moment to moment instead of creating like a plan for life. Should I sit in ashram or should I serve the poor animals who have not been fed? Decide moment to moment. You don't have to make something out of your life. It's a very strange thing, of course, to say, but it is completely contrary to the world's idea.
Because then I'm also exposed to so many other factors when, yeah. And then I get, sometimes it just gets, that would be lovely.
It is lovely. I'm inviting you, no? I'm inviting you in. Here it's all trouble. Yeah, it's all lovely. So you can live there and here can happen. Yeah.
I understand and I know. But when it's too, sometimes it's just too much. When it's too much, again.
And nobody's ever complained that there's too much heart. Everybody only can say it's too much head. There's too much heart, too much intuition, too much love, too much guidance, too much reassurance, too much feeling at home. That's our true home. And when this seems unreal, when God's presence seems unreal, then you are in Maya. See, what is Maya? Maya is not a change of location. The location can be this only. But where you are really can change independent of this location. You can live in God's heart wherever you may be in the world. And there is no power, no matter how convincing anybody is. I will never be convinced that there is a power in the world that can take us away from His presence, His light on its own. Nothing has that power. It's just not possible. And make it moment to moment. This moment, God. This moment, God. This moment, God.
I guess I'm going in such deep lack of understanding. Like, it's like I'm really, I understand to understand, but it's just, sometimes it's just, I don't even want to understand. Why am I the one to understand? No, I don't want it anymore.
Just leave this I. How else to tell you? I know that you're fully wholehearted and you're deeply in love with God and truths. But whatever narratives the mind still sells you, we must have the courage to even leave them. You may say, enough, I've done this for so long. Is it? But we can't ever say that. We don't know how long is too long. If the job was to climb 10,000 steps to the temple of the heart, then how do we know how many steps we've climbed? Maybe you give up at the 9,999 steps saying, enough, enough, I'm done with this. Can we say really? Can't say. That's what we need, deep courage, deep faith. Because every obstacle will come on this path. There is nobody who has come to him, to his truth and said, oh, that was so easy. That was just cakewalk, man. That's it. Has anyone said that? No. They may be, of course, humble and not talk about the obstacles they faced and the things that happened. They may not like to get into all of that. But nobody has ever said it's going to be a cakewalk for you. That is what needs faith. If it was easy, then why faith? Why courage? Why patience? So don't ever conclude in terms of how far you've come or not come. God only knows. Every moment is here or here. That's the simplest way I can explain this. If you make it into a span of time, then it becomes all complicated and difficult and story and all of that. Right now, use my pointer that if God's presence is not seeming real to you right now, then you're in Maya. You're in the wrong place. Not physically, but inwardly.
Otherwise, Maya synonyms with identity.
With the illusion. The illusion, the world play, the Leela.
So is it then that the presence kind of needs to be stronger always over the mind?
No, it is always stronger over the mind, but
Being aware of it.
yes, but you can always pick.
You can always
Pick. You can always pick between head and heart. Don't think about it. Just pick the heart. Pick not to think.
just now recently.
Okay, for a moment, don't understand anything. That is to pick the heart. What's the problem there? Don't get the past in.
Do not understand anything.
Don't understand anything this moment. Ah, see, you're still trying to understand. Yeah, like that.
Okay.
Don't close your eyes now. Stay like this. Stay. Ah, come.
Things happen.
Exactly.
But
See, I looked away for a moment.
understanding is love. Like with the love, we understand.
Highest pointer I have. When you look meditative on the outside, no? Usually understanding on the inside. Ah.
You said to pick. You said to pick.
Yeah.
And
To pick is to be empty.
yeah, but there are
See.
some cases when.
Forget some cases right now.
Okay.
Is God real? Okay, I'll give you it. Maybe you missed that satsang, but I shared recently that if you're following heart guidance, heart understanding, then pure perception is not interrupted by it. So you don't, usually when we play that fresh game, then after a while everybody becomes good at looking all empty on the outside but just thinking on the inside or something. But if you notice for yourself, by thinking your pure perception is always interrupted. It gets blurry. You may not, after a few seconds of thinking, you may not even realize you're in this room anymore. But heart guidance doesn't interrupt pure perception. That's why if you're with sages, they're always with you, even in the world of perception, and yet they can be communicating, talking, they're not interrupted by the mind. And that is the satsang you go for. We go to meet that. Because in the world, how do we meet people? We ourselves are halfway there, they are halfway there, half thinking, half with you, half somewhere else. You come to satsang for such a meeting where someone's fully with you and still communication can happen. You notice this? It just came the other day as I was sharing. That understanding you can go with. All of us have noticed this. Have you noticed this? That if you try and think or understand something and perceive at the same time, what happens? You notice? It gets blurry, you know? Because attention is so limited. But when you live in his light, then the world continues to be perceived actually much deeper than before. And yet, all understanding, all guidance, all words, everything comes from here. So our life doesn't become so scattered. See, we are most of the time living in our head, then we're trying to be with people in the world. None of that really happens well because of this way of being.
Sometimes shut your eyes.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So just something just draws all attention to itself. Yeah? Like the presence is just like that.
Father, such a grace, Father, to be in satsang. You don't know why even I'm eligible to be. It's really, really great. Friday we didn't have satsang. Monday I could not join, and I can really see the absence. I can feel the absence. Stay away of not being with satsang, Father. It was so difficult to be with God for just missing a couple of satsang. Don't know what makes us to be here, Father. Thank you. And at the same time, there's so much of fear that what will happen if we don't have satsang, Father? Or what will happen? I mean, my being with God is so much dependent of the presence of you or in satsang. So that fear is also creeping up, and then mind comes to be what spineless you are. Can't do anything without him. Why are you not doing it yourself? And so on.
And I have to say that thank you, such a beautiful report, and I love you so deeply in my heart. Thank you. But also I have to say that especially I've seen with the boys, no, you have to be very careful of that voice which tells you, but you must be able to do it yourself now. You see, he can only get you so far. You see, and I'm glad you're able to say that, because be very careful of this one. I trust His grace that longing which must have been in your heart to find Him, whether recognized or unrecognized, brought you to satsang and is flowering so clearly, will also take care of the rest of it, that which, like you yourself said, it's pure grace, because I don't know what we did. Like, I don't know what I did to have beautiful children, have beautiful sangha like you. That so some supreme intelligence is taking care of all of this. So it is not possible that you continue to have that deep longing for His love, His light, and if something happens to this body, then it is not possible that you will be left without guidance or without a refuge from the temptation of Maya. So trust that grace, trust that faith. And anyway, I'm not going anywhere till you find me deeply in your heart. So that yes, somebody was saying this morning. Yeah, that's why I said we have to be careful, especially of that idea that, okay, now I got everything that I needed. Now the rest I have to do on my own only. It is said that, I'm not saying in any correlation to you, I'm just saying it just came here. I got reminded of, it is said Alexander wanted his father to die soon because his father was already conquering the world. So he said that if my father conquers everything, there will be nothing for me to conquer. You see? So somewhere I've noticed in the conditioning, especially of boys, and maybe it's a generalization, but I've noticed this, that somewhere we get that thing that no, now you must be independent. Now you must do this on your own. And what is my attempt? My attempt is to make you fully independent, but not premature. To make you fully independent, completely dependent only on God's presence within your heart and on nothing in the world, including this bunch of flesh. So another child also told me this morning that she said, if I ever just go gallivanting somewhere, go off, please slap me and bring me back. But it doesn't actually work, and I didn't have the energy this morning to share. But once you're gone, you've already built so many barriers, and we've seen this over the years with so many, that you built so many barriers that it's not possible to really get through. It becomes very, so that how it feels like when you're in the heart of satsang, where you can say, bring me back, come, no matter what. So many have made this deal, but so many have also gone. You see? But when they go, they're just like, no, but I know better, you see, where I should be, what is good for me. So then you just have to wait for grace to resolve it. You see how the mind can work? At some level, the heart is feeling so much gratitude and love and grace, but at the same level, the mind also tries and says, but, this, you must be independent by now. You see? Are you going to be always dependent on Father? You see? It sounds like a scary idea in the world. No? Must be on your own. Just make sure that on your own is not the false one. So there's a question. Namaste Anantaji, Namaste my dear. Namaste Sangha. Thank you. So the question is, so I have no choice but to wait, pray and hope that grace finally has mercy on me. Yes, I have no choice. But as if you go with the words of that statement, it sounds very oppressive. You see, but the way I read it, it sounds so beautiful. You see? Suppose God's not shining on you yet, His light is not, which is not possible actually. No, it's only as a result of inhaling this Maya too much. But suppose, so what are we doing? We are praying, we're inquiring, we're serving in humility, we're loving with all our heart. So isn't that much better than what life would have been otherwise anyway? So let's take the seeming worst case scenario. Suppose His mercy, His grace never comes in that way, that His presence is felt, is alive. And yet our life would be so much better because we are praying, because we are inquiring into who we really are, because we are loving, because we are humble, because we are faithful, because we are grateful, because we are so deeply longing for Him. It sounds to me like a much better life than all other templates available in the world. So it is not a question of, so I just have to, and it may never reach a conclusion which is satisfactory, but even that life will be much more worthy than a life chasing falseness and a life full of ignorance. Most of our brothers and sisters will never recognize ignorance or vidya. Most of our brothers and sisters will never recognize their own pride. Most of our brothers and sisters will never contemplate that God is a living presence to be found, to be discovered, and to be lived in. So not only must we live this way with all our heart, with all our might, but in doing that, we may inspire those to also come to His presence. So the question then really is this as drastic a difference as I say in satsang, or am I just being exaggerating and strong about it? Is it really the difference between life and death? Or no? So firstly, then those who have been introduced to life must not choose death every moment. Okay? Firstly, that is incumbent upon us. And then we must have love in our hearts for those around us, and also especially for those who are open to introduce them to this possibility, not to satsang here, but you can do the heart temple movement, you can talk to your loved ones, you can, if it is true that this presence is life, and life without it is a life full of suffering and a zombie life, then because of some fear of, oh, how will they react, what will they say, that seems strange. Or you say that there's no difference, actually, little bit difference. You live in God's light. It's 3% better than living in the mind. How is it? But you must argue with me then, no? You must say, when you say it is zombie life versus true life, then I want to take it up with you. What do you mean? It's not like that. Yeah? Is God real for you now? Is His presence alive for you now? If your answer is no, you must go to your heart. If your answer is yes, you must go to your heart.
Did you? I want to expose something. It's a place that I feel a deceptive power, and it's still, I would like to explore it with you. And it's in kind of being aware, and how in God's presence, a lot of times there's a simultaneous perfume that comes with it. And, it feels like in the explorations of being in God's presence, sometimes the mind takes it on as an activity and it starts looking for that perfume, and it doesn't feel, it feels like it's my heart knows that's the mind's activity, but I get engaged in it, and it's just this really sticky place where...
Okay, so leave all that
Okay.
now.
You're going to Let me ask another question. Maybe.
What does this sound?
Just let me get one question in. In a time where it's very turbulent and there's no perfume of God, that presence is still there. And
If the presence is still there, then there is no turbulence. Because that is the most steady anchor.
there's a buzz though. The buzz is there. There's an anchor.
In what way? Perceptually?
It's like a calling to come.
Like the mind is tempting you.
Yeah.
You see? But then if you get tempted, then the presence is gone.
Yes. But the buzz is still there.
Okay. So this is very important, that although presence is always there, when we are in ignorance, when we are gone with the mind, then it seems to have gone. You see, the presence seems to go. So you cannot say either that the presence is there but the mind is. Because if presence is there, forget the mind. Or you cannot say when I'm in the mind, the presence is still there, because we're just talking conceptually. The tasting of it is not there. That is the whole point, no? That is the whole distraction. That the world of perceptions which the mind uses as evidence for its claims. You see, when the claims are bought, then God seems to get hidden.
In the absence, maybe the question is, in the absence of perfume, if it still feels that I'm grounded in presence, is that the mind fooling me, or can presence be independent of any perfume?
Yeah, you forget about perfume. Just make it about between presence and mind. Don't make it a factor to consider at all. Just be careful of that habit of the mind, which will take your pure insight, heart insight, and then make categories out of it, make a conceptual understanding out of it. Just stay. I remember when this one was younger also, he had an attraction towards that which sounded more like absolute. So it's just like, oh, but that's the absolute. No, stay in the absolute. And then maybe he used to consider this being, this presence as like a midway step or something like that. It's just not true. How would you take the hand of God to be less real than God? Yeah? The tip of the iceberg is also the iceberg. Just because it's... So first we must recognize where the categorization is coming from. And if it is coming from the intellect, the mind, then recognize that the thief will not help you catch him. So don't fall for that. But if it is heartfelt, then I'm happy to explore more. And see.
Yeah. Maybe just one more. I think it's happening much less frequently, but in the past I used something this really uncontracted as a uncontracted state, as a arrow or an anchor, and I've come to see how that's really actually been a hindrance, and sometimes that still plays in that in this nadi approach, or when things are really coming.
Yeah, the niti.
The niti approach. You should just sit with it.
Yes. So the I can never use this as an anchor. The false I can never use this as an anchor. Because when the me is there, then this cannot be. And when this is there, then the me cannot be.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yes, because to come to the presence of God cannot happen in egotistical circumstances. You see? So if the me is alive and kicking, then the presence will not be palpable at all. But if God's presence is there, then there's nobody to use it. So the attempt to use it by one, like the mind would never make this attempt truly anyway, because it doesn't want its own dissolution.
When you say stop being, is it the same as like drop the top?
Yes, just don't be awake. First time I said today like that, no? Just fall asleep right now. And maybe I'll meet someone who can actually do it. Maybe it's a simpler sounding one. Are you awake or asleep? Huh?
Awake.
Awake. So how do we know that? What is here which is not in the world that shows us that we are awake? Like he's almost asleep. Yeah. Is it only because the world is here we can say? Like Pankaj had this story, no? He woke up one night in Sahaja, he had gone for the Sangha, what was it? Sangha meeting, you were there. And there was literally no perception. There was no sound being heard, there was no light to see anything, it was literally nothing. But he said that your example of realizing we are awake even without perception, that actually came true. When you wake up, suppose you wake up and there was no world, you still know that you are awake, isn't it? Yes? So okay, so there are some times where you're sitting in satsang and you fall asleep. Then you know you fell asleep. There's some other times where you go into some deep meditative state. Even then the world dissolves, you don't hear my voice, but you're not asleep. You see? Sometimes in satsang, you're just wide awake and listening. You see? So, independent of all of this, there is a witnessing that is aware of all of this. But that which changes with wakefulness versus sleep versus some deep meditative state, what is that? What is changing while awareness remains unchanging? Is it like that? No.
Inwardly, no? If completely inwardly, and if just staying inwardly.
Yeah, inwardly, you stay inwardly, and what is this
So the world is
being?
fierce.
What is this wakefulness, aliveness?
But in that inwardly, it's like complete ignorance to the world.
In the world's eyes, yes. But the inwardly, the one that you meet is the Supreme Intelligence.
But it's like, I have this, probably it's coming from the mind, but for me it's the feeling, it's like shutting off the world.
It's
like,
not shutting off.
it's like almost like a selfish, it's presenting itself lately as a selfish thing.
That's the classical.
That is the mind.
That is the classical debate between the karma yogis and the jnana yogis.
Mm-hmm.
The karma yogis are, I'm doing so much for the world. You're sitting and inquiring, who am I? Who am I? And the jnana yogis are like, you're sitting in Maya and trying to do all this is not going to lead to anything. Find out who you are before it's too late. So don't get into any of those debates. In what is the highest karma that we can do? Therefore, what is the dharma? The dharma is the highest karma we can do. Okay, maybe wrong audience. It said we must always do our dharma. You see? So then that dharma must be the highest karma we can do. So what would that be? How to find out what it is? Huh? If it is coming from God, if it is God's will, it must be the highest. No? You see? So how can that be ignorance? Then that is to follow that is our dharma. Therefore, there is no real distinction between the karma yogi and the jnana yogi. Because if the karma yogi wants to do selflessly that which is the highest good, can that be found in the head? No, we must come to a meeting with God, and then the guidance will come from there. So when Nanakji said, Hukum Rajai Chalna, Nanak Likhya Naam, which is, you must follow the will of God, the command of God, and that is His pointing to us. Or when Jesus said, you may call me Lord, Lord, but I will not listen unless you follow the will of my Father here on earth.
So, okay. So it would be like absorption of as much suffering as possible, and then that's it.
But the thing is not possible to suffer in God's light. To go in on our own terms is the doorway to suffering. On our own terms means our mind's terms. What are the two options? We go with God's will or the mind's will, isn't it? Is there a third? Any other source of knowledge that we can rely on? So, when all the sages, all the teachers, all the prophets, everyone has told us to follow the will of God. In every religion, in Hindus, there's Hanuman who is famous because he followed Ram's will unconditionally. In Muslims, a true Muslim is one who follows God's will. Nobody can say they're a true Muslim if they say, no, I just follow my own way and I don't follow God's will. To follow Islam is to follow God's will. In Christians, it is said, let thy will be done here on earth as it is in heaven. But we cannot just presume that I think I'm right, therefore I must be following God's will. That is literally the definition of post-fall Adam, no? Isn't it? What was the fall of Adam? He took on the job of determining what is good and what is bad for himself. So that is the biblical representation of the human condition. When we take on that job in our mind intellect instead of following God's will, then that is to leave His presence, is to leave the heaven, leave the Garden of Eden. All of these stories are the same. So these are the very, very deeply conditioned ideas in the human conditioning saying, but that just sounds like ignorance. That just sounds like ignorance. Just going away from what is needed, from doing our responsibilities, from doing our karma. But I have not said any of that. We are just presuming that God's will cannot make us work or cannot make us feed the children, feed the dogs. But why go with these presumptions? Why don't we ask Him? What do you want me to do? What would you have me do if you want to sound Shakespearean? Because we don't have faith, that there is God really. Or we don't have faith in ourselves that He would answer us. That's why I keep saying if He's sitting in front of you, then most of these questions will vanish, Because you could just ask Him. But He's sitting more intimately close to you than in front of you. But that needs faith. To trust that faith which you have direct insight about, but it is still not like a visible, objective reality. So it seems difficult because I am saying bet your life on that. I'm not saying do little bit of this and little bit of that. Get a balance. I'm saying bet your life on that. That is the only way balance will happen.
Keep getting into some sort of like a debate in the head. Like, I know in my heart that it's not God's will, it's a mental projection. There are voices, people arguing. So, trying to prove that that is the way.
Yeah.
You should think about it. No, this is right.
Exactly.
No, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I go into believing that.
Exactly. That is the core human condition. You see? And all of us are afflicted by that. Do I live 100% in God's will? I don't. Because sometimes I just go with my idea of right. You see? And that is why it's a work in progress. You see? So all of us are afflicted with that. But at least we must recognize it. We must not brush it under the carpet like you're doing now. It's good to expose it and say, this is what happens. You see, and nobody does anything thinking that we're doing wrong. Even the biggest villain is a hero in their head. But they've determined right and wrong wrongly in their heads. So, this is, again, it will sound oppressive, but it is not. It is actually a true way of living, which is to commit to live by God's will, in God's light, in His love, and to go like that, to live like that, but then to fail. You see, to go with the mind, it offers something, it seems so correct, it seems so right, it seems so rational, that we get tempted by it. You see, or it just seems so attractive. You see, you see? It just seems so attractive. So we go with that, and then because of satsang, because of your anchor in your heart, you may recognize that. And what to do when we recognize that? The mind will offer solutions even for that. You see, it tempts you, and then it offers you solutions for that also. So when you're tempted, it will say, see, you must not do this, you must do like that, like this. So it's more and more. See? And then the checker guy, see, you're doing it again, you're just not worthy, when will you get this? So it just goes on and on and on. And we keep hoping that there will be some end to this, but it doesn't happen. It's rambling is continuous.
It's like get pulled into the fight somehow.
Yeah, of course. All kinds of things. Therefore, there's no point. I was saying, who was I saying it to in Satsang the other day, saying, don't get into any debates with your mind. Maybe Sanjukta, that don't start debating it because it will have its rationality, all of that stuff. Just transcend it, leave it. And nobody can take that power away from you. To leave it, if you really want to. If you want to juggle and say, I'm half interested in that, half interested in this, then our life seems to get all stretched out and difficult. But if you commit and say, God, 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 come what may, see? Then we still fail half the time, but at least it's half the time.
But like you're saying, peak.
Peak, yes.
Peak.
Yes.
But there are moments when it's
Leave those. The rest of the time you pick.
But when I'm in that moment, what I'm
Leave it. It's okay. It's right off. You have bad debts in every balance sheet. No? You can't leave the good moments because you picked wrongly in the bad ones. No. You see, that's what we're doing. We say, okay, now I picked wrongly. We may not admit also it is wrongly. We may justify it and things like that. And then we keep living in that rationalization. And now it is right to try and make a bad deal go right. We spend all our time instead of just returning home. That is literally the story of the prodigal son. Isn't it? What is the story of the prodigal son? It's a metaphor for this, no? We fall for the trick and then we try to make it true, happen, work, come what may. Then we feel unworthy to go back home. We feel Father will never forgive us. All that stuff. But all that is a metaphor for this. Then don't try to make it work. Recognize you went to the wrong place. Just return home. Because the more you try, the more time you'll waste. Yeah. If they give me a job as a biblical preacher, yeah.
Will they give you?
Yeah.
You have to speak louder.
This is true. This is true. Very true. Have you heard this one? He's a very powerful speaker, Billy Graham. I don't think he's in the body now, but just millions coming to see him, and he's such a powerful speaker. What now? Picking the right thing or no? Like, at least this much we must have clocked by now that it's not possible here. No matter how hard we try to squeeze the truth in here, it just doesn't fit. No matter what we do, it doesn't fit. You see? We try to say yes, like that. Nirguna, Saguna, Jagat, Jiva, like that we try to. You see? No, it just doesn't fit. Something will always be, but that can't be. Yeah. Like even a statement from a sage, like Maya is both real and unreal. You may say, oh yeah, Maya is real and unreal. But what have you understood as a result of that? Nothing. You see, there's like literally nothing. It's just a pointer to leave that and to meet it here. Because in your heart you can meet that. And I say presence is phenomenal and non-phenomenal. It may sound like something very nice for your head to grasp. But can you grasp it in the head? There's no chance. This is exactly like I was saying that day, that when we start collecting the signboards instead of visiting the town, then it's not going to do anything. Suppose you love a particular ice cream and you're just collecting I'm looking at Anup now, but you're just collecting the ads, no? You're just like taking the pamphlets from the people, you're photographing the images from the social media, and you get all the ice cream photos. Will that be satisfactory for you? You have to taste it. If you don't come to God's presence, if you don't live there, if you don't encounter all the temptations, the difficulties that we encounter in that, and we just building our conceptual knowledge, then nothing will happen with that. You had something else you were saying? Finish?
No, like there's this like gap between to bet your life on God and then almost touching your finger on the present.
Two. Yes, two. Okay, so you said that seems to be a gap or distance between
not
betting.
like, but I mean like it's like the one first step.
So which one is the first step?
To see it like.
Maybe it is to bet your life. I don't know. Maybe it's both go hand in hand. I don't know really, because if you were to ask me conclusively, do I have to bet my life, have faith, and completely commit to God before I can meet His presence? Maybe. Or do I have to meet His presence so that I have a sense of it and then I can bet my life on it? Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, because I feel like that in my life, but I feel like is it also like
No.
And I feel it's I feel like this God, and I feel like You can call it cancer.
Very good, very good. Very good. Yes. So insight, servitude, love, we can never say this is first and this is second. To be a true servant of God, we must bet our life on Him. Yes, please.
We discussed something about anger. I do this. Used to do this 3 questions. I would like again to go with those 3 questions if you allow right now.
Of course.
So, can we do that?
Are you talking about can you stop being? Are you aware now? What is the third question? The third question? So the first was how to stop suffering is to not believe your next thought. So I don't recall a question there. So what I used to say when all of you used to come was that if you look at the human condition and when we turn to spirituality or we turn to religion, it is basically for 3 things, isn't it? First is rid me of suffering. I don't want to suffer anymore. So then I would say just to come to the end of suffering, don't believe your next thought. That's really it. And I was so naive and stupid, of course, at that time that I felt like with this simple instruction, everybody will just be able to follow and not suffer anymore. And then I feel like in that stupidity, in that naivety, there was some sweetness. So I find that boy very sweet in some way. So the second was, okay, I'm done with my suffering, but can you show me God? Which is the famous Vivekananda question to Sri Ramakrishna also. So, yes. To meet God, you have to try and stop being. Can you stop being? Because the being, the presence, is God's presence.
So when I asked question this, normally I ask this question, can I stop being? The next thought that arises is it a being should be tasted? Is it that should be seen or should be felt? Or how is it that a being, I say yes, but still I'm not able to say how can I say yes?
Yes. This is the beauty of it. This is the beauty of it, that if it was purely objective, then it would be Maya. You see? So if you came to being and you said, this is what it is, 2 inches from my heart, there is an object there which is perceived, which is called the being. You see? So then you could transfer it, you could do like kidney transplant, you could do being transplant. You see? So if it is purely objective, it would be like that. If it is purely non-phenomenal, pure nirguna, you see, then there is no question of experiencing it or tasting it or feeling it. But your being, your presence is both phenomenal and non-phenomenal. Because it is phenomenal, we can call it the primordial vibration. You see? And because it is non-phenomenal, we can say it is boundless. Because no phenomena is boundless. You see, it is only the non-phenomena. So that is why I call it God's helping hand. Because we are so used to phenomena, we are so used to name and form, that He has given us the light within, which is unlike any light in the world. It is like a holy presence, a being, an Atma, which you can meet, you can say, is there. You see? Some may say if I say where is it, you may say I feel its core in my heart area somewhere. Some will say on the sixth chakra or something like that. You see, in my head. Some will say like that. But when I say what is its boundary, you say it's boundless. You see? So how can it be that it's both in my heart and boundless? That is the beauty of it. That it teaches us how to go from an intellectual understanding by introducing us to something which is not graspable in perception or understanding, but graspable intuitively, because you can't deny your own being. I mean, you can try, but it doesn't seem true. No? It doesn't. You know there's something missing in that denial, because you recognize that I am. So it is God in a way teaching us how to live where we can recognize our being, because there all truth is found. Even the absolute is found only there. You see, that's why we must not devalue it, because only in the light of this Sadguru presence can the truth be found. That is why the Guru is called the bringer of light. This is the light. No? He shines the light on the unperceivable. Otherwise, without this, the unperceivable will just be an idea. So how is it to be felt? It is not explainable. It is just to be tasted. It is the most unique taste. No? Nobody can say it is sweet or salty or like this, like that. We can't say. You just say, I am.
So ironic that even trying to find, we cannot find it, but still as it exists. I mean, I'm able to find it. I can see that. I stay there. Yes. But when I try to find it, it's not that. I mean,
any time we go to our head, it is not there. It is there, but it is hidden. You see, it's that all the metaphors are based on that. No? The finger can block the light of the moon, the speck of dust can block the vision. All of that is telling you that the moon is still there, but we are blocking it because of our avidya. Okay? So to be empty of the mind is to give ourselves the chance to live in His light. इसी पर हो नहीं पाएगा, क्योंकि जब तक सब उसके लिए ना हो तब तक कोई उसमें रह नहीं सकता हमेशा. अगर ये सब फिर भी मैं के लिए होगा तो हो नहीं पाएगा.
कैसे बोल सकते हैं आपकी?
That's whatever. My heart is telling me नहीं हो पाए.
I'm just trying to understand. So should I wake up the checker guy here and say that? Is it
just where you are right now? Don't live there. Because there we can only operate from the needs of the me. Where you are finding His presence, just stay there. And there you can stay only if you don't want anything from me, you only want to live for God or be in His service. That's why we spoke so much of the will of God, following the will of God, the emulation of Hanuman, the emulation of all the great devotees who followed His will.
So next thought comes is that enough?
Otherwise you can keep playing this game for another dozen years. What will be the end of this? We don't know, it could be a dozen lifetimes.
So in other terms, we say this as the Holy Presence, Holy Spirit presence. It's the same thing that we call in different terms.
Yes, Atma, Sadguru presence, Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, the Noor within, whatever term we use, it's the same.
feel like too much of, it's like I'm bored, or like it's like too much of tediousness to classify, to understand.
छोड़ दो ना,
Too much of, so I'm reporting it.
Very good, very good. We must all come to that tiredness. Done with this now. How much we'll understand? That's what I'm saying. No matter how much we try, we cannot squeeze it here, no? Like most of us must have seen that by now, hopefully. That all our attempts to make God object of our understanding, it fails. He can only be an object of our heart, of our love.
I'm attracted to one more thing that you, the God of waking state, the I am. And we went through one journey together, and I did report the same thing as you mentioned. So still I'm not able to convey in my words, but can we go again there? It's the same thing that I'm talking right now, or
the can you stop being is the same as that.
the God of waking state.
Yes. There is no distinction between Atma and Paramatma.
This is the
But
first
the
thing
only
that
way
wakes
to Paramatma is through Atma. That's what I was trying to tell him also. That we cannot say, I want the Paramatma, only Atma is just a halfway house or something like that.
So I was just trying to contemplate on one. You asked one question today, that when you wake up from the dream state or some slumber, what it is that says that you're awake, that this beingness says that you're
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Pankajji's example really went through it, that
Yeah.
let's say there was no light, there was no sound,
Yes.
there was nothing, it was a dark blob, and still you wake up. You can say that you wake up.
Exactly. You know you're awake. You may not perceive anything. And most of you have had these meditative experiences also, where you haven't fallen asleep, but the world seems to dissolve from time to time. See?
So, thank you for that sharing, because it kind of helped. This place where it just helped. I'll just say.
Yes, you say it. Don't have to sound right.
I think earlier when I was asking, when God's presence isn't palpable or it's not felt at all.
Yes.
Sometimes the memory of it, the memory of this, the quality, the subtle quality of it. In the moment where I'm not in God's presence, I try to use that memory as an anchor, and that's where I get into trouble.
But that which is purely intuitive, we can't actually keep in memory, and that's why you were saying byproducts, because you may be able to keep like a feeling that emerged as a byproduct in memory, but it itself we cannot.
It's not even solid. It's just.
Huh?
Yeah, sorry.
No, I was saying that that which is truly true, we cannot store in memory. It has to be met fresh.
Yes.
So you're right that you may try and cling on to the memory of the good feelings that emerge as a result of being in the presence, but the presence itself we cannot keep. Just like awareness, we can never keep in memory. Is it? That's the beauty of the non-phenomenal. Say, there's no mind, there's no.
It's like, when we are walking, we calculate,
Yeah.
what is the footstep going and what you're doing. It's happening naturally.
Intuitively. Yes.
The same thing, if you question your mind, then you might trip.
Exactly.
But otherwise you don't trip.
Yes.
Like it naturally happens. So when everything is happening naturally, but if you give it to the mind, that's when the problem is. Even when you try, the same thing.
Yeah. And as a sportsman, most sportsmen have reported that when they're in the zone, then they perform the best. What is that zone? No mind.
So basically that's no mind.
No mind, exactly.
But then you would have put in the practice,
Correct.
and then when you're in that zone, it's no mind. But even in practice, if you're putting in your mind, that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Like if you're chasing the result, then it's definitely not going to happen.